Did you read the last story? This issue is even more exciting. Welcome to subscribe. Chapter 16. Street Battle Under the Silver Cross. The Parisian Slums. On November 23, 1897, as the bells of Notre Dame de Paris shattered the mist, Isabella was crouching on the wooden ladder of the Bruya stronghold, bandaging the bite on the calf of the third child with a cloth strip. The blood of the infected glowed a faint blue under the bandage. The moment her fingertips touched the child's ankle, all the gas lamps in the street suddenly exploded. The improved silver bullets of the Silver Cross hunters were piercing through the damp fog. Hide in the cellar. Adrian's silver dagger flashed past her hair, slitting the throat of the charging hunter. The moment Isabella rushed into the storeroom with the child in her arms, a silver bullet grazed her upper arm. Amidst the intense pain, she heard the hissing sound of metal melting. The bullet that should have penetrated her flesh was suspended on the surface of her skin, corroded into liquid silver beads by her blood. They're forging bullets with Stigmata silver. Adrian's pocket watch cracked during the fight, and the Arctic coordinate map on it was scorched by the silver bullet. Weapons specifically designed to deal with half-breed bloodlines. Before he could finish, 3 hunters leaped down from the roof. The silver arrows on their crossbows were engraved with rose patterns identical to her birthmark. The cries of children came from the depths of the alley. Isabella suddenly saw clearly the blood flowing in the hunter's blood vessels. It was the dark purple unique to the Dracula faction, mixed with the fluorescence of the first-generation virus. Instinctively, she reached out her hand, and the bloody patterns on her fingertips resonated with the silver cross necklaces around the hunters' necks. The 3 silver arrows actually changed direction in mid-air and pierced into the hunters' own hearts. Isabella. Adrian's shout was drowned out by the explosion. She watched as the fallen hunters twitched in a pool of blood, and the blood in their blood vessels was being squeezed into ice shards by an invisible hand. This was the first time she actively controlled the blood. Not a passive memory flashback, but rather like tightly grasping the reins to seize the opponent's aorta, until the hunter's eyes bulged and blood oozed from their 7 orifices. I didn't mean to double quotes. She stepped back tremblingly and knocked over the kerosene lamp in the corner. The fire illuminated the badge on the hunter's chest. LW-1897. The same number as in Adrian's laboratory log. What was even more eye-catching was the sketch in the hunter's hand, which depicted the scene of her father's execution with charcoal strokes. And at the bottom right corner was stamped the wax seal of the Ventru Council. They've long known that you're at the Bruya stronghold. Adrian kicked away the burning wooden board, and his silver dagger sliced through the moonlight, creating a blue glow. The secret order was kill on sight, but why do the Dracula hunters have a Ventru sketch? The secret letter in Adrian's hand gave off a scorched smell on the parchment that the hunter had tried to burn before his death. The secret order of the Ventru Prince was clearly printed. Allow the Dracula faction to pursue the vessel. Recover the blood after it is severely injured. Isabella's nails dug deep into her palm as fragments of the memory of her father's strangulation suddenly flooded back. Wasn't there a reflection of this badge in the audience at the execution ground back then? They're using me as bait. She stared at the rose seal at the end of the secret letter, which was the mark of an illegitimate son of the Ventru family. Just like when my father was executed, they deliberately let me see the ring flying towards me. This isn't the time to dwell on the past. Adrian suddenly grabbed her wrist. In the shadows at the end of the alley, 20 hunters were weaving a net with silver chains. The double helix patterns engraved on the chains were exactly the form of the first-generation virus in the underground palace mural. Isabella's birthmark suddenly burned. She saw that the blood vessels of all the hunters were glowing. It was the virus's instinctive craving for half-breed blood. The moment the silver net fell, she swung her dagger with a scream, and the bloody pattern spread along the blade's wind. The hunter's blood actually flowed in reverse within their blood vessels, spraying out from their ears and noses to form a blood mist. Enough! Adrian hugged her as she lost control. The silver chain left a burn mark on her neck. If you use it anymore, your humanity will be devoured by the virus. Only then did she realize that her pupils had completely crystallized, reflecting the twitching hunters on the ground, and their blood was uncontrollably converging towards her. The secret letter slipped out of Adrian's pocket. When Isabella picked it up, she found a line of small characters written in the blood of the infected on the back. In the winter of 1890, Mr. White personally executed Count Moreau with a knife. She suddenly looked up and met Adrian's instantly tense jawline. That was the year her father was executed and the beginning of her adoption. They said my father was a traitor. Her voice was mixed with the smell of gunpowder. But the appearance of the Holy Maiden in the mural, my mother's cross, your silver dagger, all the clues point to the Ventru Council being the earliest virus researchers. Adrian's silence was more piercing than gunshots. In the distance, the low growl of mechanical hounds could be heard. The pursuers of the Dracula faction were following the blood resonance, and the Ventru's Silver Cross hunters were now using the blood-stained silver chains to draw the St. Andrew's cross representing purification on the wall, with her silhouette at the intersection. "Follow me," Adrian suddenly dragged her into a dead-end alley. The Arctic coordinates engraved on the stone wall were oozing blood, exactly the same as the pattern inside his pocket watch. But Isabella suddenly broke free and held the silver dagger across her chest. "Was it you who carried out the execution at the execution ground? Why is my father's ring in your hand?" The footsteps of the hunters approached. Adrian's profile flickered in the firelight. "In 1890, I did pierce your father's heart with this knife," he said, raising the silver dagger. The unengraved part of the handle reflected her shocked face. "But what he said before he died wasn't revenge, but protect my daughter. Her blood can end the curse." Isabella's birthmark suddenly heated up. The pupils of the hounds at the end of the alley flashed with blood-red light. It was the consciousness of the first-generation prince observing through the eyes of the beasts. She instinctively grabbed Adrian's wrist, but upon touching his skin, she saw a memory. On a winter night in 1890, her father stuffed the Ventru ring into the swaddled her. Adrian was standing beside the execution rack, and the hands of his pocket watch pointed to the same starry sky as today. "They made you think I was the enemy." Adrian's voice was torn apart by the explosion of the silver bullet. "But now the Ventru want your life and the Draculas want your blood, only by going to the Arctic." "Enough!" Isabella suddenly grabbed his collar and pressed him against the damp brick wall. The tip of the silver dagger pressed against his throat, and she saw abnormal silver, white blood under his skin. The same reaction as when the sewer rats had stopped back then. "You've long known that I'm the vessel, right? You knew it from the first time we met at the opera?" Adrian didn't deny it. The ticking of the pocket watch was particularly clear in the silence. "When Charlotte and your mother were taken by the Ventru for experiments, I saw your birth certificate. The rose-shaped birthmark, AB-type blood, and abnormal affinity for the virus, ... double quotes." He stared at her gradually, blood race like pupils. "But you're different from them. You can activate both the seal and purification, just like the sarcophagus in the Notre Dame underground palace." The sound of the hounds biting interrupted their conversation. 3 mechanical hounds broke through the wall, and the fluorescent blood of the first-generation virus dripped from their metal teeth. Isabella instinctively protected Adrian behind her. The bloody pattern spread from the birthmark to her fingertips, and the hounds that should have attacked her suddenly all prostrated themselves on the ground. Their mechanical hearts emitted a resonance at the same frequency as her heartbeat. "They're worshipping." Adrian's voice carried a sense of relief. "The vessel of the first-generation prince is supposed to make virus-infected creatures submit." He tore off the hunter's cloak, revealing the fragment of the holy scripture of blood hidden underneath. "But the Ventru Council is even more afraid of this. Your father used his own blood to engrave the coordinates of the Arctic ice layer on the reliquary." The moment Isabella took the fragment, the blood in the entire alley suddenly boiled. She saw the memories of all the hunters. They had all been Type B blood civilians, transformed into Silver Cross hunters after being injected with the virus by the Dracula faction, and a rose-shaped ship identical to her birthmark was embedded in their hearts. They were testing the reaction of my blood to silverware. She stared at the unhealed wound in her palm. The burn caused by the silver bullet was healing at a visible speed. My blood can melt Stigmata silver, just like the drop of blood that burned me at the opera back then. It wasn't the silverware that was burning the virus, but the virus that was afraid of my blood. Adrian's pupils suddenly contracted. You mean, when the blood of the first-generation prince contaminated the groundwater, it had already recognized the half-breed fetus in your mother's body. That's why the silver moon mark of the opera singer is the same as your birthmark. And that's why the infected stop when they see you. Because I'm the perfect host for the virus, Isabella interrupted him. Her voice was like the frozen Seine River. The Ventru Council wants to kill me. The Draculas want to replicate me. And you ... She raised the blood-stained secret letter. Did you approach me to seek revenge or to fulfill my father's last wish? Reinforcements of hunters poured in from all directions. The silver crosses glowed coldly in the morning mist. Adrian suddenly tore open his shirt. The old wound above his left chest was the place where he had been pierced by the silver chain back then. The scar was surrounded by fluorescence, the same as her blood. Before Charlotte died, she said that the virus would make the blood race lose their humanity, but your blood can awaken it. He stuffed the silver dagger into her hand. The groove on the handle fit her birthmark perfectly. When I forged this knife, I reserved not only Charlotte's ashes, but also your father's... Before he could finish, a silver bullet pierced through his shoulder. Isabella watched as his blood dripped onto the stone wall, making the engraved Arctic coordinates emit a blue light, a reaction unique to Type B blood, echoing the blood type secret of the Lucas family. Go! Adrian pushed her towards the hidden door. The last page of the secret letter has the coordinates of the Ventru Council's gene bank. They're mass-producing fake vessels. His voice was drowned out by the roar of the mechanical hounds. The silver dagger in Isabella's hand became hot, and the unfinished engraving A-1897 suddenly emerged on the inner side of the handle, which was the abbreviation of Adrian's name. The moment she turned around, she saw Adrian being hung in midair by the silver chain. The pocket watch fell from the broken mirror, revealing the photo inside. In the winter of 1890, he and her father were standing in front of the Notre Dame underground palace, holding the swaddled her with a rose-shaped birthmark on the side of her neck in their hands. In the mist at the end of the alley, Leonardo's assistant was sneering, holding a gene tracker. On the screen of the instrument, Isabella's blood signal was as dazzling as the silver moon, and the hand with which she tightly grasped the secret letter was unconsciously drawing a rose pattern on the wall. The blood of the hunters she had controlled was converging along the brick cracks into the shape of the North Star. This issue ends here. The next issue will be even more exciting. Subscribe as soon as possible.